the unregistered threat. The bridge of the Zephyrian patrol ship Stellar Dominion hummed with quiet efficiency as it cruised through the outer rim of Sector 7. Captain Vex Corvain stood at the center of the command deck, his tall frame casting a shadow over the holographic displays that surrounded him. His species, the Zephyrians, had ruled this corner of the galaxy for over 3 centuries, their blue-scaled skin and towering height marking them as the apex predators of space. Lieutenant Zara Vex, the ship's sensor officer, suddenly straightened at her station. Her amber eyes widened as she studied the readings flowing across her screen. "Captain, I'm detecting an unidentified vessel approaching our position." Corvain turned smoothly, his military bearing evident in every movement. "Classification? Unknown. Sir, the signature doesn't match anything in our databases." Zara's fingers danced across her controls, pulling up more detailed scans. "It's strange, Captain. The hull appears to be constructed from primitive materials, mostly iron and carbon composites, but the energy readings are unlike anything I've seen." The captain moved to stand behind her station, studying the data with growing interest. In his 30 years of service to the Zephyrian Empire, he had encountered dozens of species, cataloged their technologies, and watched as they either submitted to imperial rule or were crushed beneath it. This reading, however, defied every pattern he knew. "Visual contact?" he asked. "Coming online now, sir." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a vessel that made several bridge crew members gasp audibly. The ship appeared almost primitive by Zephyrian standards, a blocky utilitarian design with exposed piping and rough-welded seams. Yet something about its movement suggested hidden sophistication. It didn't drift or waver like most crewed vessels. Instead, it maintained perfect trajectory and speed with mechanical precision. "Size?" Corvain inquired. "Approximately 800 meters in length, significantly smaller than our vessel, but Captain..." Zara hesitated, double-checking her readings. "The power output is incredible. Their reactor is producing energy levels that rival our own primary systems." Commander Dex Thorne, Corvain's second-in-command, stepped forward from his position near the tactical station. His scarred face bore the marks of countless battles fought in service of the Empire. "Impossible. No primitive species could achieve such efficiency with crude materials." Before anyone could respond, the communications officer raised her hand. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel." On screen, the image shifted to show the interior of what appeared to be a cramped bridge. The lighting was harsh and utilitarian, casting sharp shadows across banks of monitors and control panels. At the center of the image stood a figure that immediately commanded attention, not through size or intimidating appearance, but through an unmistakable sense of quiet authority. The being was bipedal, roughly 2 meters tall with pale skin and short brown hair. Most remarkably, despite the primitive appearance of their vessel, this individual wore a uniform that spoke of military precision and discipline. When they spoke, their voice carried the weight of absolute confidence. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Endeavor. You have entered the boundaries of a protected zone. Please state your intentions and vessel registry." The Zephyrian bridge fell silent. Corvain found himself studying this human with growing fascination. Their physical structure appeared fragile compared to his own species, yet something in their posture suggested they were far from helpless. "I am Captain Vex Corvain of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy," he replied, allowing his full authority to color his voice. "This sector falls under Imperial jurisdiction. You are the one who must explain your presence here." The human's expression didn't change, but something flickered in their eyes, not fear, but calculation. "Imperial jurisdiction? I'm afraid you're mistaken, Captain. This region was claimed by the Terran Federation over 2 centuries ago." Commander Thorne stepped closer to Corvain, speaking quietly. "Sir, there is no record of any Terran Federation in our databases. This species is unknown to Imperial science." Corvain nodded slightly, then addressed the screen again. "Your Federation is not recognized by Imperial law. Submit to boarding for inspection, or prepare to be treated as a hostile force." The response was immediate and unexpected. Commander Chen's lips curved into what might have been a smile, though it contained no warmth. Captain Corvain, I suggest you reconsider your position. You are outnumbered, outgunned, and operating under severely outdated information. Outnumbered? Thorne scoffed audibly. We see only one primitive vessel. Sarah Chen touched a control on her console. Suddenly, the Stellar Dominion sensors screamed warnings as 5 additional contacts appeared on the tactical display. So, ships had been there all along, hidden by some form of stealth technology that had completely fooled Zephyrian sensors. Zara spun in her chair, panic evident in her voice. Captain, 6 ships total, all reading massive energy signatures. They've been surrounding us for at least 10 minutes without detection. Corvain felt his blood chill. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, enslaved dozens of species, and established their dominance through superior technology and tactical superiority. No primitive species should have been capable of this level of deception. How? He asked, directing the question both to his crew and to the human on the screen. Chen's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained hard. Your empire has a saying, doesn't it? The prey that learns to hunt becomes the most dangerous predator. We've had 2 centuries to learn from your methods, Captain. The tactical officer suddenly called out in alarm. Sir, our weapon systems are not responding. All primary armaments are offline. Before anyone could react, the communications officer added her own horrified report. Captain, our communication arrays are compromised. We cannot contact Fleet Command. We're completely cut off. Corvain turned back to the screen, beginning to understand the true scope of what he was facing. Who are you? What species are you? We're human, Captain, from a world your empire designated as Terra, though we called it Earth. Your people conquered it 237 years ago. Chen's voice carried centuries of suppressed anger. Your records probably listed as a dead world, completely sterilized to prevent future resistance. The captain's mind raced through imperial history. There had been many worlds conquered over the centuries, many species destroyed or enslaved. The details of individual campaigns often blurred together in the vast scope of imperial expansion. That's impossible, Commander Thorne interjected. All conquered worlds undergo complete pacification. No resistance movements survive imperial conquest. Chen's smile returned, sharper this time. You're right, Commander. No resistance movements survive on the surface. But you made one crucial mistake. You never imagined that some of us might escape. She touched another control, and the view screen split to show multiple images. Massive industrial complexes built inside asteroids, cities carved into the hearts of dead moons, and fleets of ships that dwarfed anything in the Zephyrian navy. While your empire celebrated the conquest of Earth, several thousand humans escaped in colony ships. We've spent 2 centuries building, learning, and preparing. Her voice hardened. We studied every aspect of your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. We infiltrated your computer networks, observed your military procedures, and watched as you repeated the same patterns of conquest across dozens of worlds. Corvain stared at the images, his mind struggling to process the implications. How many of you are there? Enough, Chen replied simply. The Terran Federation now controls over 50 star systems, commands a fleet of 3,000 vessels, and has established diplomatic relations with 17 other species your empire has classified as extinct. The sensor officer's voice cracked with fear. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting massive hyperspace signatures. Multiple fleets are dropping out of FTL throughout the sector. Chen nodded as if this was exactly what she had expected. The Terran 4th Fleet has arrived to establish a permanent presence in this region. Captain Corvain, you have a choice to make, which is, return to your Imperial command and deliver this message. The age of Zephyrian dominance is ending. The species you conquered, the worlds you destroyed, the peoples you enslaved, we remember, and we're coming home. Before Corvain could respond, the human ships began moving. Their formation shifted with precision that spoke of countless hours, of training and coordination. The Stellar Dominion, once a proud symbol of imperial might, now sat helpless in the center of a trap that had been decades in the making. Your weapons and communications will be restored in exactly 1 hour, Chen continued. That should give you enough time to reach the edge of this system and jump to hyperspace. When you report to your superiors, tell them this: humanity has returned, and we've learned everything you taught us about conquest. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in stunned silence. Around them, the human ships maintained their positions, their presence a clear demonstration of power held in careful restraint. Captain Corvain sank into his command chair, the weight of history pressing down upon him. In the span of minutes, everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had changed. The empire that had seemed invincible now faced an enemy born from its own victories, shaped by its own methods, and driven by centuries of patient preparation. The reckoning begins. The emergency session of the Zephyrian High Command had been called within hours of Captain Corvain's report. The vast chamber beneath the Imperial Palace on Zephyros Prime had not seen such tension since the Great Rebellion of Sector 12, over a century ago. High Admiral Marcus Thane stood at the center of the circular room, his massive frame dwarfing the holographic projectors that surrounded him. "Explain to me again," Thane's voice rumbled like distant thunder, "how a single patrol ship encountered 6 unknown vessels without any prior warning from our intelligence networks." Captain Corvain stood rigidly at attention, though the events of the past day had clearly shaken him. "Sir, the humans possess stealth technology that completely defeated our sensors. They were tracking us for an extended period before revealing themselves." "Humans," repeated Intelligence Director Vera Knox, her tone suggesting she found the very word distasteful. "From a world we conquered over 2 centuries ago. A world our records show was completely sterilized." "Yes, ma'am. According to Commander O. Chen, survivors escaped before the planet's destruction and have been building their strength in exile." High Admiral Thane activated a holographic display, showing the Zephyrian Empire's current territorial holdings, a vast swath of space encompassing nearly 400 star systems. "Our empire spans half the galaxy. Our fleets number in the thousands. Our technology is unmatched. You're asking me to believe that a handful of refugees have somehow become a threat to Imperial security?" Before Corvain could respond, the chamber's priority communication system activated. The voice of Fleet Admiral Zen, commander of the 3rd Battle Group, filled the room with barely controlled panic. "High Command, this is Admiral Zen reporting from the Rigel sector. We have a situation." Thane moved to the communications console, his expression darkening. "Report, Admiral." "Sir, we've lost contact with 17 patrol vessels over the past 6 hours. The last transmission from the cruiser, Inevitable, indicated they were investigating unidentified ships in the Kepler system." The High Admiral's claws extended involuntarily, scraping against the metal of the console. 17 ships? "Yes, sir. Additionally, we're receiving reports from civilian vessels throughout the Outer Rim. They're encountering unknown warships that appear from nowhere, scan them thoroughly, then disappear." Director Knox stepped forward, her mind already working through the tactical implications. "They're mapping our shipping routes, fleet deployments, and communication networks." "More than that," Captain Corvain interjected, then paused as all eyes turned to him. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" Thane nodded grimly. "During my encounter with the humans, they demonstrated complete knowledge of our tactical procedures, command structures, and even our communication protocols. They didn't just study us from a distance, they infiltrated our systems." The communications system activated again, this time broadcasting Admiral Zen's voice with even greater urgency. "High Command, priority alert. Long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements in the outer territories. Estimated 300 vessels, unknown configuration, 300 ships." The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Even the largest Zephyrian battle groups rarely exceeded 50 vessels, and those were gathered only for major campaigns. High Admiral Thane's strategic mind began calculating possibilities, all of them unpleasant. "Admiral Zen, what's the status of the 7th Fleet?" "Standing by in the Centauri system, sir. 120 ships ready for immediate deployment." Deploy them to establish a defensive perimeter around the Rigel sector. And Admiral? Thane paused, the weight of his next words evident. Assume hostile intent. As the communication ended, Director Knox activated her own console, bringing up intelligence reports from across the Empire. Hi, Admiral, we have a problem. I'm seeing anomalous activity in our computer networks dating back years. System infiltrations that we attributed to random malfunctions or minor security breaches. How extensive? Potentially catastrophic. If these humans have been observing us as long as they claim, they may have access to fleet deployment schedules, defensive plans, even the locations of our primary shipyards. The gravity of the situation was beginning to sink in. The Zephyrian Empire, built on the principle of technological and tactical superiority, now faced an enemy that had studied them for centuries and potentially compromised their most secure systems. Captain Corvain cleared his throat. Sir, there's something else. Commander Chen mentioned that humans have established diplomatic relations with 17 other species we've classified as extinct. Impossible, Thane growled. Our conquest protocols ensure complete elimination of resistance. Unless, Knox said slowly, her intelligence background leading her to an uncomfortable conclusion. They followed the same pattern as the humans. Escape, exile, and gradual rebuilding while we assumed they were destroyed. The implications were staggering. If multiple species had survived Zephyrian conquest and were now united under human leadership, the Empire faced not just a military threat, but a coalition of enemies with centuries of grievances and detailed knowledge of imperial weaknesses. The team chamber's main view screen suddenly activated without authorization, displaying the familiar face of Commander Sarah Chen. The human appeared calm and composed, as if she were addressing a routine diplomatic meeting rather than the highest levels of an enemy government. Hi, Admiral Thane, she said, somehow knowing exactly who she was addressing despite the security protocols that should have made such identification impossible. I trust you've received reports of our activities throughout your territory. Thane stepped closer to the screen, his full height and intimidating presence having no visible effect on the human commander. This is an act of war. No, Admiral, this is a notification. What you're witnessing is the Terran Federation establishing our presence in regions that rightfully belong to the species you conquered. We're not invading, we're coming home. Your home was destroyed centuries ago. Chen's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. Earth was destroyed. Humanity was not. We've spent 200 years growing stronger while you grew complacent. We've learned patience, strategy, and most importantly, we've learned from your mistakes. Director Knox leaned forward. What do you want? Justice, reparations, and the immediate withdrawal of Zephyrian forces from all systems containing populations you've displaced or enslaved. Chen's voice remained calm, but the steel beneath it was unmistakable. You have 72 hours to begin compliance. And if we refuse? Thane asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Then you'll learn what it feels like to be conquered by a superior force. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian leadership in stunned silence. Around them, reports continued to stream in from across the Empire, mysterious ships appearing. Without warning, communication networks experiencing unexplained failures, and growing reports of missing patrol vessels. High Admiral Thane turned to his staff, his mind already shifting into full military mode. We're now at a state of imperial emergency. I want all fleet commanders briefed on the situation within the hour. Double the security protocols on all military installations, and begin immediate preparations for total mobilization. Captain Corvain remained at attention, but his expression was troubled. Sir, with respect, I don't think traditional military responses will be sufficient. These humans have had centuries to prepare for this moment. They know us better than we know ourselves. Then we adapt, Thane replied grimly. The Zephyrian Empire has survived for 3 centuries because we're willing to do whatever it takes to maintain our dominance. As the High Command began implementing emergency protocols, none of them noticed the subtle changes occurring in their own computer systems. Deep within the Imperial networks, human infiltration programs activated routines that had been dormant for years. Communication arrays began routing messages through hidden pathways. Sensor networks started reporting false readings, and in a dozen critical systems, kill switches that had been planted decades ago began their silent countdown. Outside the chamber's reinforced walls, the Zephyrian capital continued its normal routine, unaware that their empire was about to face its greatest challenge. But in the darkness of space, human fleets continued their patient advance, each ship carrying the weight of centuries of exile and the determination of a species that had learned the hard way how to survive. The age of Zephyrian dominance was ending, and the reckoning was just beginning.